Hello, and welcome to another edition of Questions for Lawyers. I'm personal injury attorney Jeff Adelman. I'm here with my good friend, Gary Handin, real estate attorney. Gary, this is going to be the best show we've had. I know it.
Glad to be here.
Well, I'm really glad to be doing this with you. Can you tell everybody a little bit about your practice?
Yeah, most of my practice is either real estate related or wills, trusts, probate. When people pass away, then the estate needs to be probated.
Sure.
I take care of that. But estate planning from the point of view, not financial planning, but from the paperwork point of view of making sure that your assets go where you want them to go when you go.
Absolutely. And can you tell us a little bit about your real estate practice?
Yeah, I've been practicing now. Actually, this is my 50th year.
Congratulations.
I'm almost afraid to tell people that old fart. But I own a title company, Florida Home Title Company, and so most of the work, most of the real estate work, either buying, selling, or refinancing, goes through the title company. Although I can also do it through my own law practice. Licensed both ways.
Can you tell everybody your telephone number and your website address?
Sure. The telephone number is 954-796-9600.
Okay.
Go ahead.
You can go ahead.
The website, I have two websites. The website for the law firm is www.handinlaw, HANDINLAW.com. And the site for the title company is www.floridahometitle.net.
Gary, these days in real estate, you see a lot of closing agents. You see that there are less and less attorneys involved in the closings. Can you tell us what the advantages are to having an attorney involved in the closing, no matter how big or small?
And I think you're right. People get frightened when they hear attorney. They're afraid the fees are too high.
Mm-hmm.
What am I getting myself into? So they'd rather have a closing agent. Well, one of the advantages of having an attorney-owned title insurance company is you have the attorney there, first of all, guiding the employees of the agency, where there are an awful lot of title companies and closing agents that don't involve an attorney. So some of them are better than others, but if you have an attorney handling it, if there are any legal problems that come up with the title, and many of them do, look, most of them are clear. Most of the titles, you don't necessarily have to do anything to clear them other than to make sure that they're clear of liens and that type of thing. But if there are problems, I'm there to solve it.
So if you could tell everybody, what does it cost somebody getting title insurance from you to get your legal services in addition to what they're getting from the title insurance and the closing?
I'm glad you asked that question. If I'm doing your title work, my title company is doing your title work, or I'm doing the title work through my law firm, there is no additional cost for the legal fees. You pay for the title insurance and the normal title charges, and no additional fee for having an attorney be there or represent you. If you're the seller, on the other hand, then in most cases in Broward and Miami-Dade County, you won't be. If you're the seller, you're not going to be paying for the title insurance. So if you want me to represent you, then I charge a legal fee to represent you and prepare your documents. Go to your closing, make sure that you're not paying for things you shouldn't be paying for, and that you're only paying for what you're responsible for under your contract.
And if you're making a purchase or selling something for $500,000, a few hundred or a few $1,000s in legal fees, in the big picture, that's a small price to pay to avoid a problem in the future.
It really is hundreds. It's not generally thousands, unless you're talking about a multi-million-dollar commercial deal, or today purchase price of larger houses around here can be in the millions. So, but generally we're talking about fees in the hundreds, not not 100 or 200, but in hundreds, anywhere between, for argument's sake, $500 and $1,000, depending upon the complexity of the deal.
Fair enough. Now, for somebody who's purchasing their first home, it can be pretty overwhelming, and they really, a lot of times they don't know what their budget is, they don't know what to do. What advice would you give somebody who's looking to make their first purchase on a home?
Well, there are several things to take into account, but the biggest one is, they always say location, location, location. Well, that's it. And Coral Springs has always been a great area, as is Parkland, because the schools are so good, and its reputation for good schools. So young families have been coming here since the 60s. And so the first thing would be location. That if you've got a family, then you can be interested in the schools. If you're a retiree, maybe not so much. Maybe there, a different location would be better for you. Sometimes people want 55 plus communities. Sometimes people specifically do not want 55 plus communities because there are advantages and disadvantages. So, but the biggest thing would be location, and in terms of location of the schools, I guess.
Well,
biggest factor.
Dovetailing from that, if somebody's going out looking with a realtor, what advice would you give them in terms of what their price point should be?
Well, that's become a difficult question today. There used to be a rule of thumb that said that your mortgage payment shouldn't be more than 25% of your gross income.
Okay.
Today, prices have gotten so high that that really isn't true anymore. I would say that the best thing to do would be to speak to a qualified and experienced mortgage broker who can give you a better idea of that. And in my practice, we work with several good mortgage brokers, and they can sit down with the client, give them the numbers so that they can see what they can afford. Sometimes before they even go out and look, it might pay to talk to a mortgage broker and find out, based on your credit and based on your income, how much of a mortgage you're going to be able to get approved for, and based on that, you can take that. You have better bargaining power to go out and make a purchase and make an offer on a house where they know you're already approved for a certain amount.
That approval letter, that's what we're talking about, right?
Right, yeah. Well, unfortunately, the pre-approval letter doesn't mean a whole lot, but in terms of whether you get a mortgage at the end, but it does give you some idea as to what you're going to be able to get if you go out into the market.
How long have you lived in Coral Springs?
Since 1978.
In your career, can you talk about what you've seen in terms of the history of Coral Springs and the real estate market? I know it's a very broad question, but you really have seen a lot of the boom of Coral Springs.
No, yeah, that's true. When I came here in 78, it was a town of about 27,000 people. It was called the slogan for Westinghouse was the city in the country. You'd be hard pressed to find the country in the city in the country today. And so there's been a lot of progress. There's obviously been a lot of growth.
Sure.
And in terms of population is like 6 times what it was in the late 70s. And the city has been on an upward trajectory for the most part, although in the past 10 years we've seen the city starting to physically look a little bit weary, and I know there's steps being taken now to revitalize the physical parts of the city and to upgrade certain areas.
That corner of Sample and University near your office is a prime example. That office building on the southeast corner, you know when that's coming down?
I don't. And my office directly overlooks that site. I was looking forward to them imploding it. Finding out specifically.
I'm coming to your office that day, because I'm going to have a good view.
Somebody, I've got the coffee. Bring a coffee cup.
I will be there. We'll go to Lady in the Mug downstairs. A shout out to them.
Actually, I don't know when they're going to do it, and I'm hoping they'll give us some notice in the local, in the forum, to let us know when it's coming down.
Well, again, your office is a perfect view, so I'm coming over for that.
All the window.
Now, technology with a real estate closing, how has that affected your ability to get a closing done efficiently over the years?
But everything, I'm glad you asked that question, because most recently I've started to e-file documents. There was, at the beginning, when before these technological advances, everything had to be done by hand.
Right.
Now, when we say everything had to be done by hand, the title had to be examined. Every single document that pertained to the title needed to be examined physically by hand. Then that system was computerized, so one, you didn't have to go down to the courthouse to do it. This is a company called Attorney's Title Insurance Company, who I had the right through, who has
Sure.
a service called ATIDS, and I don't remember what that exactly is, what ATIDS stands for, but they modernized it so that it could be all computerized, so you didn't have to go down to the courthouse, one, to look at everything,
Sure.
and two, you could see basically what was printed on there. So that sped things up. And in more recent times, the underwriter of the title insurance provides a service whereby they provide us with the basic information, and then I have to examine it and determine what documents are required to clear the title, and what documents I may not need in order to do it. And more recently, we are able to actually file the documents, and I'm talking about the deed, a mortgage, whatever other lien releases, satisfactions, that type of thing, on the computer. In Broward County, in Broward County, I get them back within minutes. Some other counties are slower. Miami-Dade is substantially slower. It's a matter of a few days. But in Broward County, we get them back. People can almost wait for their recorded deed. That usually they don't like hanging around, but after a closing, but we can get it to them the same day. So it's really sped things up. Aside from the fact that I don't have to have a courier go down there.
I was just going to say, your courier is probably very unhappy with these changes, because I remember doing a closing with you, and how many things had to be couriered over to the courthouse and all that. Is there anything that still needs to be done that way?
Not in terms of the real estate practice. Everything can be done electronically, and
that's a huge change right there.
It's a big change. It's a big money saver for the client too, because whatever expenses there were in courier fees and that type of thing, we passes right through to the client. So
Wow.
It saves them money also.
Now, you mentioned Broward County, Dade County, and I'm going to ask you this: what areas do you do legal work for? Like, what's your geographical area that you do closings for?
I try to stay in the Tri-County area, but obviously we'll not only my license for the whole state, but so is the title company, so
Sure.
that we can operate in any county. And I have done closings in many of our 60 some odd counties. Right now, I have a probate I'm doing this morning. As a matter of fact, I just filed papers for a probate in St. Lucie County. So again, it makes technology comes in real handy. Nobody has to run down to the courthouse to file papers. You can file them right at your desk. So but I try and stay in the Tri-County area.
Now, your entire legal career hasn't been isolated to Florida. I'm trying to remember where you're from. Is it Alabama?
You can tell my accent.
Yeah, Brooklyn, Alabama.
I practiced for 10 years in New York before I came down here. So I've been practicing since 1968. And so I came down here in 78 and practicing here. I went to work for a real estate development company. I was in-house counsel and executive vice president of the real estate development company. for a few years, and then I decided I wanted to go back out onto my own, open my own practice again. So,
Well, and while you have been practicing for 50 years, I know from speaking to you, you've kept up with the times with technology. I'm always wondering which phone you have, and I know you have Apple in your office. You insist on Apple.
yeah, we went to Apple. It must be 7 or 8 years ago. Totally got away from PCs, and it really, it so happens, full disclosure, I'm an Apple shareholder, but that's not the reason I have the Apple computers. But it made it much easier. We don't have any viruses. We don't have any pop-ups. It's simpler, much more user friendly. The whole system in the whole office went Apple.
That's terrific. I know I would like to do that more, but there's certain programs that we can't convert over to Apple. I know that you can do certain things, parallels, there's different,
Right.
but I found that it's been a little difficult for us to do that.
It works for us. It doesn't work for everybody, that's for sure.
Can you tell everybody a little bit about what quitclaim deeds are?
Sure. The quitclaim deeds, and most people I run into, most laymen call them quick claim deeds, but it's not a matter of quick claim, it's quit claim. And what you're doing is you're giving away your interest in a piece of property. A quitclaim deed says, whatever interest I have in this particular piece of real estate, I'm giving it to you. Doesn't mean that it's not a warranty deed, which is another type of deed, and I don't want to start going into the technicalities.
Sure.
But under a warranty deed, you have certain protections that you don't have over the quitclaim deed. A quitclaim deed may be as simple as, I don't know whether I have an interest in this property at all. I don't know how much of an interest I have in this property at all, but here it is. I'm signing it over to you. Now you've got whatever interest I had, you have it, and that's it. Now, this is where title insurance comes in.
Okay.
Because regardless of what kind of deed you give, if you want to have your interest in that property protected, of course, if you get a mortgage, the bank requires title insurance. But if you're paying cash, you still want to be protected. Know that there's a company of substance that's going to be there and going to pay your claim if there is a problem with the title to the
Sure.
property. So even if you took title by way of a quitclaim deed, you could still feel protected if you got title insurance, because the title insurance company would ensure that deed that you're taking gives you full title, clear title, no liens, no encumbrances on the property, and they stand behind it. See, as an attorney and as a title company, I'm an agent for an underwriter. The same way as if you were to buy a life insurance policy from ABC Insurance, and they write on New York Life, they're not insured. The agency is not insuring your life. New York Life is insuring your life. Well, the same way that with title insurance, which by the way is a one-time payment. You pay it when you buy the property.
Keep it with your closing documents.
Right, and you never pay it again. And that protects you from any claims that are on the property or any maybe unsatisfied mortgages. There are plenty of places that things can go wrong. So you want to make sure that, and people do make mistakes. So you want to make sure that you've got a solid company. If you have a claim, you want to know that somebody's going to be there.
Somebody's going to back it up if
Right.
there's a problem. Well, I would be remiss, Gary, if in a real estate law discussion, I didn't bring up Florida's Homestead Law. Can you tell anybody watching or listening a little bit about Florida's Homestead Law and why it's so helpful for a Florida resident?
Yeah, well, that's interesting because we're one of the few states that has a homestead law and is as protective as our homestead law is, which is one of the reasons why O.J. Simpson bought a home here.
That's right.
Okay, if you have a home and your home is in fact your homestead, and you live in it more than 6 months a year, and you apply for the homestead exemption. For one thing, you get the tax break, and that's what everybody thinks of. When they think of homestead, they think, okay, I don't have to pay as much in taxes, but that really isn't the greatest. First of all, if if you file for that homestead exemption so that you get the tax benefit, that's an indication, it's indicia of the fact that this property is in fact your homestead. You can otherwise, without doing that, you can declare it to be your homestead, or you don't have to. You can, the mere fact that you're living there on a full-time basis, from a legal point of view, will make it your homestead. And you say, well, what difference does it make if it's my homestead or not? There's a distinct advantage if you live in a very litigious society today, and if you would be the victim of, or on the wrong end, I shouldn't say a victim, if you were on the wrong end.
Yeah, I appreciate that, Gary.
If you were on the wrong end of a lawsuit, you wound up with a judgment against you. The judgment creditor, the person who has the judgment against you, cannot attach your home. So now I come from New York, as I said, and in New York, at least I haven't practiced there since 1978, but certainly I don't think it's changed. The law's changed in this area. If someone gets a judgment against you, they can force a sale of any real property that you own. Well, on non-homestead property, that's true in Florida also, but your homestead is protected. And the Constitution of the state of Florida makes sure that it's protected. The only thing you got to make sure you pay are your taxes, and of course, if you have a mortgage, make sure you pay your mortgage and pay the IRS because their liens are good too.
What do you always tell people in your closings about their mortgages?
Yeah, the people who are lending you the money, we say that he who has the gold makes the rules. Mm-hmm. So when you're sitting down at the closing table, and if you don't like the terms of the mortgage, I tell people, listen, if it were my mortgage, I couldn't change anything here. You want their money, you sign their papers the way they are, and that thus comes the saying, he who has the gold makes the rule.
Well, I was thinking of another one that you told me, which was, you pay, you stay, you don't, you won't.
Right. That's what all those papers mean.
That's what, I mean, a big pile of papers, but you said in a nutshell, this is what it means right here. Well, Gary, I can't thank you enough for coming on here with me and speaking to my clients, my friends, and other viewers. Can you tell everybody how they can reach you again?
Sure. My office is located at 3111 University Drive. I'm in the Darth Vader building on the corner of 31st and University. And the telephone number is 954-796-9600. Or you can reach me by email at ghandin, that's GHANDIN, at handinlaw, HANDINLAW.com. Jeff, I want to thank you for having me today. It's been fun and hopefully informative to your public.
Oh, I have no doubt it was, and it was a treat for me. So thank you, everybody. Again, my name is Jeff Adelman. I'm a personal injury attorney. If you have any questions or if you have any other different specialties that you'd like to hear about, feel free to reach out to me. My phone number is 954-341-2777. My email address is Jeff, Jeff, at adelmanlawyers.com, ADELMAN lawyers.com. Tune in next week, April 11th. We will have Neil Rumbach on right before the tax deadline because he's a tax attorney. And, if you have any issues right before April 15th, this is one you don't want to miss, especially if you're getting an extension or anything like that, for sure.
As many people are.
Yes, indeed. All right. Well, thank you, everybody. Have a wonderful day. We'll see you again on April 11th.
Have a good day.